Tsundere is probably the most popular character trope, representing a character that acts cold or, in one certain case, quite aggressive towards someone they have feelings for. However, as they become more comfortable, they will eventually show a warm and loving side towards their love interest. While most of the time the characters depicted are female, there are more and more examples of male tsunderes in recent years. The word tsundere itself comes from tsuntsun, which means aloof, and dere, which means affectionate. Interestingly, the first ever character to be considered a tsundere is widely agreed to be Lun from Urusei Yatsura. Airhead. It's a character that is usually portrayed as being somewhat unintelligent and lacking in common sense. They are usually super cheerful and carefree, but they may also be prone to making foolish or naive decisions due to their lack of awareness. Despite them acting stupid as fuck, the thing I love about them is that they are usually depicted as kind-hearted, optimistic and well-meaning, not necessarily wanting anything bad toward the main character. Most of the time it's just an accident, unless you're a goddess named Aqua. Although despite being one of the most common character trope, they are usually there just as comedic relief, but also the glue that holds the friendships together. Chunibyo. It's often shortened to Chuni, and it's a Japanese term that refers to 8th grade syndrome, where individuals typically act as if they possess special powers or knowledge beyond ordinary people's understanding. In anime, it is often depicted with exaggerated animation, showing how they perceive themselves, but it also highlights how ridiculous they appear when acting out these scenes. In general, this term usually just refers to kids that don't want to act like the other kids anymore. They want to seen and treated as adults. While most characters exhibiting Chunibyo behavior are young, there are also quite a few examples of adult characters that act the same way. Otaku. These characters, much like many viewers, are depicted as individuals obsessed with anime, manga and other aspects of otaku culture. While most of these characters conform to stereotypical portrayals of what an otaku looks like and how they act, in recent times characters like Marin gained huge popularity thanks to initially being seen as the exact opposite, only to later reveal that she's a die-hard cosplayer who is proudly obsessed about anime and video games, something that doesn't exist in real life, so don't get your hopes up. Yandere. It's a character that is usually portrayed as sweet, loving and caring, that eventually becomes mentally unstable, often violent or obsessive, thanks to just how much they are in love with usually the main character. However, this is not just any kind of obsession. They can display extreme possessiveness and most of the time resort to drastic measures, including violence or even murder to eliminate any threat that can in some way bother their loved one or somehow come in between their relationship. The word yandere itself comes from yanderu, which means to be mentally ill, and once again dere, which means affectionate. While yandere characters aren't really common at all, especially nowadays, they are some of the most recognizable ones thanks to it appearing quite frequently in pop culture. Crybaby. It's a character who frequently displays emotions of sadness, fear or vulnerability, and tends to cry literally every single episode. They are super sensitive and easily moved to tears, whether due to emotional situations, physical pain, or distressing events. These characters are probably the most controversial ones, as there is at least one appearing in every single popular anime in quite important roles. Thanks to them just non-stop crying about something, they are usually the most hated ones by far. However, one thing most people don't realize is that they are also the most realistic ones. If you were to become a Demon Slayer, you wouldn't act like Tanjiro or Inosuke. There's a 99% chance you will be just like Zenitsu, minus his powers. Apathetic. This character is someone who lacks interest, enthusiasm, or concern about things happening around them. They usually appear indifferent or emotionless, showing little or no reaction to events or situations that would typically elicit a response from others. This demeanor can stem from being bored, but usually they are just completely detached from their surroundings. Many of these characters are seen as cool by kids, which leads to many of them imitating such behavior, resulting in videos like How to Breathe or How to Train like Ayano Koji going viral, which I will never understand. However, they are often disliked characters because they are perceived as insanely boring and never grow as a person at all. Kudere. It's a character who appears calm and unemotional most of the time, similar to someone who is apathetic. However, the difference is that these characters, much like tsunderes, hide a deep inner love inside and eventually open up towards their love interest, becoming more affectionate. Outside of their romantic interest, they typically maintain their cold and uninterested attitude toward others. The word kudere itself comes from kuru, derived from the English word cool, meaning calm and unemotional, and once again dere, which means affectionate. Psychopath. This usually describes someone who displays a persistent pattern of antisocial behavior, lack of empathy, manipulative tendencies, and a huge ego. However, what makes them unique is just how unpredictable they are, being quite chaotic and having an enigmatic charm. In anime, these kind of characters were the most popular in the 2000s, where they appeared as antagonists. It's quite interesting to see that despite most of these characters being antagonists and quite clearly mentally unstable, we absolutely love them, making them some of the most popular characters of all time, thanks to their portrayal as quite intelligent, good at manipulating, but also really charismatic. Delinquent. Back in the 90s, it used to be one of the most popular character trope, embodying a character who always gets into fights, skips school, and is just a massive douchebag. But also someone that had a sense of loyalty to their friends and a strong sense of justice. From the 70s through the 90s, gangs in Japan became a much bigger thing, from rallying on the streets with their motorbikes to constantly getting into fights. Thanks to teenagers viewing that as something cool, characters like that started to appear a lot more frequently in anime, gaining huge popularity with characters like Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho or Onizuka from Great Teacher Onizuka. However, this type of trope slowly but surely completely disappeared in anime. The few that is there became insanely popular, but none of them are well executed, making them quite hated. Genki. This character is typically portrayed as a schoolgirl who is overly energetic, super loud, speaks so quickly that she's completely unintelligible, and always wants to do things insanely fast. Essentially, she embodies ADHD. However, what sets her apart is that she's usually super confident and determined, regardless of whether she's competent or not. While these characters are often included for comedic relief, what I love about them is that they can change quite quickly when it matters, slowing down for a serious or introspective moment, which makes them quite lovable characters. OP. Also known as overpowered characters, are depicted as individuals who possess abilities or powers that far surpass those of other characters in the story. These characters are typically portrayed as being almost invincible or having abilities that make them nearly unbeatable in combat or other challenges they face. It's probably one of the most overdone tropes, as these characters are often considered quite boring and don't work well in serious anime. That's why many of the super popular ones in anime appear as parodies of something popular in media, like a superhero or a demon king. Moe. These are characters that are the embodiment of being cute and innocent. They give off feelings of strong affection and behave in cute ways that make people want to protect them. Their personality is usually portrayed as a combination of dere, being sweet and affectionate, dandere, where they act shy, and also bakadere, thanks to their childlike sense of wonder and innocence. While the word moe itself means cute, the origin of it is unknown. However, most theories say that the term most likely comes from the name of Hotaru Tomoe from Sailor Moon and Moe Sagisawa from Kyori Wakusei. Mad Scientist. This character is typically portrayed as a brilliant but eccentric individual who is obsessed with scientific experimentation. Often to the point of disregarding ethical boundaries or social norms. They are known for their unconventional methods, unorthodox inventions, and tendency towards megalomaniacal behavior. While it's not a super popular character trope, quite a few of my favorites fall under it, like Okabe, who is dotted by paranoia, delusion, and eccentricities, but also someone that is prioritizing the lives of his loved ones over science. And also Hanji, who is also someone you could call a mad scientist, considering how much she loves experimenting on titans. Dandere. This is a character that is silenced almost to the point of coming across as emotionless most of the time, but will suddenly become talkative and sweet when they are around people they care about. They can be perceived as someone who is apathetic, but they are not doing it on purpose. It's more just that they are shy or even have social anxiety, but really want to talk with others, spend time with them and just be around them. Usually it takes a long time, but they overcome this kind of behavior and quite a lot of confidence, which is what makes them interesting characters. They are probably the most loved ones thanks to a lot of viewers being quite similar to them, and these characters growing being quite inspirational.